On the news, our first talk about tragedy. Dr. Jillian Roberts, illustrations by Jane Henricks. When you observe the world around us, maybe by watching or listening to the news, you may see or hear about things that are scary and confusing. Many good things happen in the world, but sometimes bad things happen too. It's okay to ask questions when you don't understand why something bad has happened in the world. I saw on the news today that something bad had happened in the city. Many people were hurt and some were killed. I felt sad and scared. I understand how you feel. I feel the same way when I see or hear things like that on the news. The world can be a complicated and confusing place. It's hard to accept that things, very bad things, happen in the world around us. And down here it says an ambulance responds to an emergency in Manhattan, New York. What do you call something bad that happens? Here it says a wildfire burns on a mountainside near Bailey, Colorado in 2002. When something bad happens, we often call it a tragedy or a disaster. Tragedy and disaster have similar meanings. Both are used to describe something bad that happens. Disaster is most often used to describe a major event itself, an earthquake, tsunami, a flood, for example. Tragedy is usually used when we talk about the people involved in the event. For example, Hurricane Katrina was one of the most destructive natural disasters in U.S. history. More than 1,200 people lost their lives in this tragedy. Every year, close to 160 million people are affected by natural disaster worldwide. And the World Health Organization, that's almost half the population of the United States and 4 times the population of Canada. What causes a tragedy or a disaster? Sometimes there are acts of nature, which means they are caused by changes in the natural world around us. Sometimes they're caused by people. Here is emergency crews work to secure a building in Ukraine that was damaged in an explosion caused by a gas leak in 2017. What kinds of tragedies are caused by nature? And it shows their children row a makeshift boat through a flooded street in Bangladesh in 2017. Tragedies caused by nature are often called natural disasters. They include such events as forest fires, hurricanes, earthquakes, landslides, floods, droughts, and tsunamis. A little bit more about natural disasters. The World Health Organization states that natural disasters have an immediate impact on people's lives and often cause destruction of people's homes and communities. These disasters may affect people's health, their jobs, their families, and how they live their lives for a very long time. The 21st century has seen major natural disasters such as these. An earthquake in Port-au-Prince, Haiti in 2010 affected more than 3 million people. The Boxing Day tsunami in 2004 caused an earthquake in the Indian Ocean with a magnitude of 9.1 to 9.3, completely washed out parts of Sumatra. Hurricane Katrina struck the Gulf Coast of the United States in 2005 and is considered the most destructive hurricane of the 21st century. What kinds of tragedies are caused by people? People cause many different kinds of tragedies. For example, they may cause fires by accidentally or intentionally setting grass, brush, trees, or even buildings on fire. This picture says workers in hazmat suits clean up a crude oil spill in Phra Bay, Thailand, 2013. People sometimes cause tragedies with their cars or boats. trains, or tractors. They may do this by accident or by being irresponsible. Technological disasters happen when systems break down or people controlling them make mistakes. These types of disasters include nuclear reactor meltdowns, oil tankers, pipeline spills, and train derailments. The 20th and the 21st century have been technological disasters such as these. In 2013, an unattended freight train carrying crude oil rolled into downtown Lac Mégantic, Quebec, and derailed. The train cars caught fire and exploded, destroying 30 buildings and killing 47 people. The PB oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico in 2010 was the largest marine oil spill in history. An estimated 205 million gallons of oil spilled into the Gulf over 87 days. Over 30,000 people came together to collect oil, clean up beaches, and take care of animals. The Chernobyl disaster in 1986, in what is now the Ukraine, was the most catastrophic nuclear power plant incident in history. The economic, environmental, cultural, and health impacts of the disaster are still being felt today. This picture says, police officers patrol the Trocadero Gardens near the Eiffel Tower in Paris, France. And sometimes people cause tragedies on purpose, such as when people commit crimes. Sometimes you hear about terrorism or terrorists on the news. And terrorism is the calculated use of violence against innocent people in order to make them afraid. Terrorists, the people who commit crimes of terrorism, often target people who have different cultural, religions, or political views. Some of the major terrorist attacks that have occurred in the world are, on September 11, 2001, 19 men attacked 4 American commercial airplanes and intentionally crashed them into buildings. There were 2,977 people killed in New York City, Washington, D.C., and outside Shanksville, Pennsylvania. On November 13, 2015, attacks across Paris killed 130 people and wounded hundreds of others. On January 29, 2017, a terrorist attacked a mosque in Quebec City, killing 6 worshippers and injuring many others. On August 12, 2017, a terrorist drove his car into a crowd in Charlottesville, Virginia, killing 1 person and injuring 19 others. Why do tragedies happen? No one knows for sure why tragedies occur. Part of understanding tragedies is accepting that most of the time we cannot control them. Did you know that sometimes people are really mixed up? They don't understand the difference between right and wrong. It's wrong to hurt other people on purpose. When something bad happens, we should always look for ways to help those who are hurt. What is it like for someone who experiences a tragedy? It is very, very difficult for people who are affected by tragedy or disaster. People in these situations experience lots of different emotions. They can feel sad, scared, and angry. As a child psychologist, I help children by talking with them about these feelings. And I want you to know it's normal to have strong emotions when a tragedy or disaster happens, even if you're just hearing about it on TV or in the radio. It is also normal to worry about yourself and your family. Everyone's different, and we all react differently to tragedies or disasters. I have my own ideas about why bad things happen from time to time. Perhaps tragedies happen to give people a chance to be strong. Perhaps tragedies happen to give people a chance to be brave. And it says here, Nuala in Haitian, this means we are here, we survive. This saying was used frequently after Hurricane Matthew in 2016. Bad things do happen in the world, like war, natural disasters, disease, but out of these situations always arise stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And that was a former broadcast journalist, Darren Kagan. And these are different rescue teams, different helpers. Perhaps tragedies happen to bring people together. Tragedies and times of sadness and grief may be turned into opportunities to teach compassion. Perhaps tragedies happen to give people a chance to be kind and caring. When an entire town came together to choose kindness. During the tragedy of September 11, 2001, the United States closed its airspace, causing about 200 flights in the air to be diverted to the other airports. Gander, a tiny town in Newfoundland, Canada, opened its runways, allowing 38 transatlantic flights to land. The people of Gander and surrounding fishing villages filled their schools, community rooms, homes, churches with cots for stranded passengers. They even found a way to care for 17 dogs and cats, 2 great apes, and were abroad the planes. The people of Gander, a town of no more than 10,000 people, looked at all these planes, lined up at the airport, and didn't think about terrorism or potential attacks. They wanted to help. Taken from Petula Djurvac's article in the Washington Post, September 10th, 2016. Whenever something negative happens, there's a deep lesson concealed in it, by Eckhart Tolle. What is resilience? Resilience is the ability to recover from adjust to misfortune or change. The most beautiful people we have known are those who have known defeat, known suffering, known struggle, known loss, and have found the way out of the depths. These persons have the appreciation, a sensitivity, and an understanding of life that fills them with compassion, gentleness, and a deep loving concern. People, beautiful people, do not just happen. By Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. It is terrible when a tragedy happens. However, it's important to know that life continues after a tragedy. People are resilient. When people come together during a tragedy, and when people are strong, brave, kind, and compassionate, it's easier for them to continue on with everyday life. What can we do to help when tragedy or disasters occur in the world around us? There are many things we can do. For example, we could show our appreciation to the first responders in our community, firefighters, police officers, paramedics. We could also show our respect to members of our community who help during these challenging times, such as doctors, nurses, healthcare workers. And we participate in fundraising efforts for aid organizations that do tremendous good for our global community during times of tragedy and disaster, such as the Red Cross, UNICEF, Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders. Perhaps when you grow up, you will become a great helper in your community too. And it says a note from Dr. Jillian Roberts, author and child psychologist. As a child psychologist, I have spent countless hours helping children and families who have experienced tragedies. It's challenging, even as a seasoned therapist, to know what it's best to say to little ones in emotional anguish. I have found the following quote by Fred Rogers, better known as Mr. Rogers, particularly helpful and inspiring to make my work in these hard times. When I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. To this day, especially in times of disaster, I remember my mother's words, and I am always comforted by realizing that there are still many helpers, so many caring people in the world. When we look for helpers, we can see that there is hope in times of great darkness. Helpers shine a kind of light that helps us find our way. We could see beauty in the totality of human experience. I hope this book inspires each reader to be a helper in any way possible in times of tragedy and disaster. When we come together and show strength, courage, kindness, and compassion, we help make the world around us a much better place. And there's some more resources here. On the news. Take a deep breath. Keep going forward. Keep caring for each other.